The hypocrisy from Trump is clear. The hypocrisy from Homeland Security Secretary Noem is even clearer. It's the hypocrisy of this that makes me nuts. Let me just say a little bit more about what's happening in LA. We talked yesterday about the legal side of this, and it's actually a close call legally, right? As to whether the president is allowed to call in the National Guard without the consent of the governor. It's also an interesting legal question as to whether he can use the Marines in the way that he's using them. Those are going to be issues that will be resolved in court. The fact that a district court did not issue an immediate temporary restraining order indicates that it is at least a very plausible legal argument that the administration is making. That's a separate question, of course, from should they do it, right? And as all of you know who listen to this show regularly, the thing that gets me is hypocrisy, right? It's the hypocrisy of this that makes me nuts. Now, some people will say, well, how are you not more upset about what they're doing and how they're doing it, etc. And the answer is something similar to what I said yesterday, which is it is fair to say that Donald Trump was elected in part because he said he was going to crack down on immigration, illegal immigration. And in areas where they aren't cooperating with federal authorities, quote unquote, sanctuary cities, it's not surprising that the administration is sending ICE in. And if people are here in the country illegally, ICE is allowed to take action. But what, to me, not enough people are talking about is how dishonest this is, right? Because Donald Trump in 2020 said this. Now, 2020 was a much worse situation nationwide than what we have right now. Way worse in terms of the amount of the riots, right? I'm separating riots from protests. Yes, there are mostly peaceful protests, but that doesn't justify the illegal conduct. You can have both, right? You can have 85% peaceful protests, and if 15% are violent, you have a disaster. You have a mess on your hands. You have a riot. So please spare me the sort of everything's peaceful. You know, well, most people are peaceful. Yes, those people should be left alone. But here's what Trump said about the National Guard in 2020.
We can't move in the National Guard. I can call insurrection, but there's no reason to ever do that. Even in a Portland case, we can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor.
We have laws, is what he said back in 2020. So what has changed? Well, this is his explanation for what has changed.
When you were talking about unrest in American cities, you said, quote, we have to go by the laws. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor. What changed now? Why is this situation different to not consult with Governor Newsom about this?
Well, the biggest change from that statement is we have an incompetent governor. So I talked about governors, but I didn't talk about he's an incompetent governor. Look at the job he's doing in California. He's destroying one of our great states. And if I didn't get involved, if we didn't bring the Guard in, and we would bring more in if we needed it, because we have to make sure there's going to be law and order.
He previously said, we can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by the governor. There wasn't a caveat, unless he's really incompetent. So the hypocrisy from Trump is clear. The hypocrisy from Homeland Security Secretary Noem is even clearer. This is what she said in an interview in 2024 about Biden federalizing the National Guard, right? She was very concerned about states' rights back then. Let's listen.
They were encouraging President Biden to activate our National Guard soldiers so that they would stand down. He actually was going to take control of our South Dakota National Guard and actually activate them so that they would not protect America. So recognizing the real threat that was to states' rights and how that would be the first time in history a president would pay a soldier to not fight, to not protect our country, made me show up in Texas the next day to let Governor Abbott know I'm here. South Dakota is with you. We will defend our Constitution. We will defend our rights, because the last several years we've seen the Democrats take away our freedom of religion, our freedom of assembly, our freedom of speech. We can't let them take away our states' rights, too, especially our right to protect ourselves.
Right. You can't take away our states' rights, right? Oh, no. But then again, you can if you're in power. Here she is this week.
The more that they protest and commit acts of violence against law enforcement officers, the harder ICE is going to kind of come after them, because these people are patriots. These ICE officers are people who are fighting for their country, and I'm so proud of them.
Look, I have a lot of respect for the ICE agents, by the way. You know, they are enforcing the law. You can argue that some of them are going too far, but again, they are law enforcement. They don't make the laws, and they aren't the ones who are deciding what to do here. They are being told what to do here. And the final piece of hypocrisy actually came today from Pam Bondi. Remember, during her confirmation hearing, she was asked about the January 6th defendants and any pardons, right? She was going to make sure that they were evaluated case by case. Let's listen.
Do you believe that the January 6 rioters who've been convicted of violent assaults on police officers should be pardoned?
Senator, if confirmed as Attorney General of the United States, the pardons, of course, fall under the president. But if asked to look at those cases, I will look at each case and advise on a case-by-case basis, just as I did my entire career as a prosecutor.
That didn't happen, right? But here's what Pam Bondi said today about how to explain away the fact that supposedly hitting a cop is the line you cannot cross, right? That is, unless you hit a cop on January 6th, right? So the question becomes, how do you justify the two together? Here she is.
The administration has talked a lot about defending law enforcement over the last week or so that these protests are going on. You've been criticized for having a double standard with the president pardoning all these people who attacked police officers on January 6th in his first day in office. How do you answer that criticism?
Well, this is very different. These are people out there hurting people in California right now. This is ongoing, no longer. We're going to protect them. We're going to do everything we can to prosecute violent criminals in California.
I don't know what that means. It's ongoing, and that somehow makes it different, that it was okay to pardon the people who attacked the cops. And by the way, I didn't even go to this one, but Kash Patel also has insisted attacking police officers is the line. And of course, he's right, except that the president pardoned the January 6th folks. And to those of you who say, you know, why do you keep bringing up January 6th? The answer is because it's relevant in assessing intellectual consistency. There is no way to justify pardoning the people on January 6th who attack police officers and telling me in the same breath that you care so much about people who are attacking police. Now, folks like me think the people who attack police officers now should have the book thrown at them. The people who are engaging in property damage should have the book thrown at them. And the people who were on January 6th should have had the book thrown at them. That's the pro-law enforcement view to take, not the cherry-picking one.